Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Daryl Evans, co-founder of Yokel Local Internet Marketing. If you're running Google Ads or spending really any money on cold traffic from the Google Ads platform, whether it's YouTube, you even could be applying some of these tactics to your Facebook strategies. I'm excited to have with me Joe Sales, founder of NV Digital Solutions. He's a lead generation efficiency expert with the topic of Google Ads. Now, I need you to listen to Joe because he used to manage $5 to $10 million in ad spend per year. Joe, welcome to the show.
No, thank you for having me, Daryl.
Joe, let's dive in. You got some tips and tricks and best practices we're going to share with the audience today. But listen, talk about one of the biggest mistakes you see being made with Google Ads today.
Well, one of the biggest mistakes that I see with relation to Google Ads is in dealing with business owners as an agency. One of the things that business owners seem to not keep track of is the fact that the sales funnel has basically two parts. One part is the lead generation part, which is the responsibility of myself or people like me doing the Adwords campaigns and driving traffic to the sales funnel. The secondary part of the sales funnel is the part where the owner is responsible for. And that part is once we drive traffic to the website, no matter how we get it, if we get them onto the website and they turn around and put in a lead generation form, they give their email, they give their phone number or whatever they give, that is about all that we can do from a paid advertising standpoint. For like Google Ads. So
Right.
After that, it's up to the business owner to complete the conversion process. And so it's a partnership between the business owner and the traffic drivers, the lead generators. And
Right.
So one of my, I don't know if the best way to say it is a pet peeve, but one of my things that I'm always having to explain and tell business owners is that they have just as much responsibility in the lead generation as we do from the paid advertising standpoint.
Right.
Because we can drive a horse to water, but we can't make him drink.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Here in our agency, we see the same thing, Joe. And full disclaimer, Joe and his firm partners with Yokel Local, and Joe runs his own independent agency, but we do contract with Joe. He's one of our lead ad specialists, the way our agency is set up. But Joe, you bring up a great point, and that is it's oftentimes the business owner's desire or even the CMO of a larger firm's desire to write the check and go back and do some other stuff, right?
Right.
And when you're selling specifically a professional service, in the case, like I know you specialize in a lot of the medical niches, med spas and some of those things. I know we've got experience in the LASIK space, but anything professional service that is, and I like to highlight discretionary, where they don't have to make, the decision isn't imminent, it's not emergent, it's not even a guarantee they're going to do it. You're bringing up a great point, which is the aspect of Google Ads and getting the traffic is only step one, but the business owner, the team, there's got to be some sales processes and funnels. What do you typically advise when you see that being the case? And then I'll throw in a couple of things that we often advise on our side.
One of the biggest thing I do is say that we got to be like from my standpoint, if I'm coming into if the campaigns are already built or whatnot, I got to go in and audit the campaigns all the way to through all the processes that I can control. And so one of the things that I always suggest is at the same time, we need to take a look at what are the steps, what are the processes in place that the business owner has. Yeah. Have they been audited? Are they listening to the conversations that are taking place on the phone? Do they have a scripted thing? Are different people saying different things? Can you tell if one salesperson is excited about the opportunity to speak with somebody and the other person is like a McDonald's worker just there to collect a check?
Thinking about closing time.
Exactly. So I think the biggest thing is when we go through the audit process, especially when I get started with a business and they've already got campaigns in place, I can work with their campaigns. I'm just going to turn around and make them efficient. I'll find the issues along the way. But we also need to find any other holes in the funnel along the way. And like we said, the sales process is a two-part funnel. It's a part from the lead generation driving, and it's a conversion funnel.
Yeah.
And so at the back end, we got to make sure the conversion funnel doesn't have any leaks as well.
Yeah, Joe, I don't know if I've said this to you, but I know I say it in plenty of presentations and talks, and the traffic part is sort of the easy part. The traffic part is sort of the easy part. The refining of the traffic is where the hard part comes in. Someone asked me just the other day, so Daryl, what does managing the AdWords campaign really look like, and what does it mean? They think it's just us throwing a bunch of keywords in a campaign. It's not that simple, right?
No, that's by the way, on our list that I've made of issues, that's down the line.
Yeah,
but,
we'll come back. We'll come back to that.
We'll definitely come back to it. But it's one of those things that there's a lot of lever pulling, and you know, the internet is not a status platform. It is a dynamic one. It's constantly changing. And when you throw into the mix that Google AdWords is in control, Google's in the business of making money. So Google is out there pulling levers to make things that work the best for them.
For them.
Also be beneficial to us.
Say that slower.
So Google is they're in the business of making money.
For them.
For themselves.
Right. We just get the opportunity
to partner with them while they're making money.
That's right, which means that if it's easy to you as the business owner or marketer watching this, that means it's probably going to make them a good chunk of change. All right, so listen, Joe, let's take a second and introduce you formally. As I mentioned as we started the show, you have been, first of all, we met a few years ago. You were not just the only place but you had a history of managing $5 to $10 million a year in ad spend. But listen, tell everybody a little bit about Joe Sales. How did you get involved in digital advertising, and specifically what led you to where you are today running your own agency?
Okay, the quick and dirty is I had a daughter born with a rare disease, and I had to stop doing what I had been doing in other jobs. And the bottom line is I had a long history in martial arts, and so I said, I'm going to start learning how to sell martial arts products on the internet. And from that, one of the first things was I built a website, and then I had been building websites for years, and then got to a realization that I've got a website, now what? How do you drive traffic to it? I'll never forget, it was November 4th, and I'm like, it's been up for 3 days, and I got my first click. And I'm like, oh, great, but how can I get this to happen faster, because we're a month away from Christmas or so. And so I learned, I outsourced. That was the next step, was to learn how to outsource. And then I said, I just want to learn how to do this. And at the time, it was in the infancy of digital marketing. Yes, there were a lot of businesses doing it and whatnot, but you couldn't just turn around, go to the local college and learn about it. And so I spent 2 years trying to find a program that I found that was legitimate. All the information that was on the internet, I couldn't tell which was legitimate, which wasn't. And even to this day, the information that's on the internet, you got to be careful of the time frames, because if the information was great in 2013, it doesn't mean that it's great information today.
Correct.
And so I got trained in several areas of digital marketing. I found that paid advertising is where the money is, and where the money is where the job stays the longest.
That's right.
And I actually lived that experience with having my whole department laid off one at a time over a course of a year, and was the last person to be standing in a declining industry. It was an industry that Google AdWords stopped advertising. And so that's how I got to this point. I decided to freelance, and so basically I run a small agency, but it's basically the majority of it is what I would call freelance work.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the issue of education online, and so many business owners today, the beauty of the internet is that anyone can access any information. The bad part is that it's all piecemeal information, right? And most of it is tactical. And you bring up a good point, because I'm super passionate about this topic, about the fact that digital marketing isn't being discussed in schools as a degree path. And the problem is, the reality is they're still teaching in traditional marketing education in universities the old traditional methods of advertising, which is impression-based marketing, right? How many eyeballs can we get on our stuff for brands? But we work with small and mid-sized firms, right? So you guys work with small and mid-sized firms. We work with small and mid-sized firms. They don't have unlimited budgets to be taken and just doing what we call mass appeal marketing, right? Television ads, radio, billboard, things like that. Most of our, and that's why I love the title in your name, which is a lead generation efficiency expert. And I love the way you put that, because at the end of the day, we have to take budgets that are typically not that big. I mean, it could be, $1,000 a month to $20,000 a month, which in the grand scheme are not that big. And we have to be efficient, right? We have to figure out all these other metrics. We're going to dive into some of that right now, but thanks for giving us your background, Joe. let's go ahead and go into the second pet peeve and or mistake that you often see, pitfall that you see business owners running into out there when they get started with Google Ads.
Okay. One of the things that especially small business owners, small businesses will tend to do is they know they have a website and they want to drive ads to their website. The thing that they don't think about is making the ad relevant to the advertisement relevant to the landing page. And so, and what I've been trained at, we called it ad scent. You want basically the smell of the advertisement itself to be the same as on the page when they get there. And so in essence, you know, the content, whatever the wording is on the page or the advertisement, especially in a regular search ad as opposed to some kind of display ad. In a search ad, somebody has turned around and had a search term, a keyword phrase that they put into into Google, and so Google's kicked back their ad as a possibility, you know, as one of the possible places to find out information about it. And so in that process, you want to be able to use as much of the content or the text that was on the page in the ad, and also, if you can, use the keywords that the person put into the browser or into Google to be able to be on the page. So that way the person will understand they're on the right page. Right. And so it's very important to do that. And the only way to really do that is to have several landing pages if you have several keywords. You can't do that if you have a business that sells, you know, widget A, widget B, widget C, widget D, and widget E. You need to have, you know, 5 different landing pages, one to discuss and have an image of each one of those different widgets.
Right. Yeah, you speak to an issue that I know a lot of business owners watching this right now. If you're a business owner or marketer and you're on a budget, like who isn't on a budget? The problem is we get lazy and we think, well, let's just set up one page with all of our products on it. I had a meeting this morning, 9 o'clock, 3-hour meeting. We got one page. We sent them into this page, and it lists all of those products, widget A through widget E.
Right.
Joe, that's a mistake, right?
Right.
And let's talk about why. Number one of the things is, to your point, is you've got these keywords that the searcher had an intention when they typed something in.
Right.
And I think there's a study from the UK, I want to say it goes back to 2013-14, talks about our attention span. And I know, Joe, you've probably heard this phrase, which is, don't make me think. Right? The reason for landing pages is so that it's crystal clear that the ad they clicked on and the page they landed on match.
Exactly.
Because the human brain actually, believe it or not, one of the primary functions of the human brain is to conserve energy. Right. And I know this isn't a science discussion, it's not a biology discussion, but that's where I come in, right? As a marketing strategist, I'm looking at buyer psychology. Right? And one of the things that you're talking about is where people go wrong is they send people I'm surprised you didn't bring this up, but Joe, how many times do you see people sending traffic or visitors to their homepage website? Oh my gosh.
To their homepage.
Oh my goodness. The worst thing you can do in ads. Worst thing you can do in ads. No, go ahead.
And you know, on a homepage, that's the page where you have, like, as an example, on your homepage, you're going to have all the different things you sell. So you're going to have every category for everything you sell. So, you know, I'll use my own homepage as an example. If I do have local SEO on there, I might have video marketing on there. You know, obviously I have paid advertising on there, but I'm also going to have, you know, social advertising on there, and then social management. You know, there we go. That's already 5 different things to distract somebody and to lose them. So you get them onto the page. Yes, they found the page. If they were looking for your brand, and their keyword was just your brand, and you got them on the brand page to show them everything you have. Right. But the majority of keyword searches are, you know, get into the longer tail searches, meaning they are more specific. And when they're more specific, you need to provide them a more specific landing page or page for them to see what's on it. So the ideal landing page to me, you know, typically would be one with basically one concept on it. Right. And so one opportunity for them to see what everything's about. And if that's what they're hot on, then they have an opportunity to find out more by pushing a button or buying or getting, you know, whatever it is, the call to action is on that page. But give them that. And that way you kind of, one of the other benefits of that is you don't lose them. Then all of a sudden you lose them. I forgot how the saying goes, but, you know, when they have too many choices, they're not going to make a decision today. You give them one choice and they can make a decision today.
That's right. There's actually a great study, and I don't have this one right in front of me, but there's a study about and someone could probably Google this and find it, but it's about it's a jelly or a jam study. A store, I believe, somewhere in the Midwest, maybe Utah, something like that. Great store. They specialized in jellies or jams, and I don't remember the exact number, but there were 30 plus different flavors of the jelly or jam. And the problem was people would come up to the store and they wouldn't buy.
Right.
And the problem is there were too many choices. There were too many choices. So what we're talking about here, in terms of efficiency in your Google ad, if someone, your ideal customer, goes to the web and they search for something specifically, what you're saying is the page should address that one topic and then one topic only.
Right.
Now, the rebuttal to that is, well, Joe, you're saying I need to have an extra, if I've got 25 keywords in my campaign, then you're suggesting I might need to have, a single landing page for every single keyword. Now, in the industry, we call that single keyword ad groups, right?
Yep.
Joe? But
Yep.
The answer is you want this to work, right? Right? I mean, how do you approach that?
Absolutely.
I mean, you want us to get you an ROI, right? I hear it all the time. Well, I'm leaving this company because they didn't give me an ROI. How much ROI can you promise me? Well, guess what? ROI, return on investment, in my opinion, has three major functions that we have to really make sure we understand. And Joe, correct me if you see it differently. First of all, we have to manage and optimize how much it's going to cost to get a click to the site, number one, right? Some industries, it might cost $50 to get a click. Other industries, it may cost $2. So it's not about how much it costs. It matters, do we know what it costs and can we keep that optimized? The second one is, what's the cost it takes to get a lead?
Right.
CPL, right? What does it cost to get someone who clicked to actually convert to a sales call or to fill out a form for your sales team to engage?
Right.
Next step. So many people want to go from click to cash register. Don't always work that way. And then the last piece is CPA, or cost per acquisition. Acquisition meaning a sale or a customer, right? And that's where the efficiency comes in. And so would you add anything to those three metrics underneath that whole ROI discussion?
No, there's not a whole lot to add to that, actually. I think you hit it on the head right there, Daryl.
Yeah, you talk about return on ad spend, ROAS, but all of those three fit under that same umbrella.
Absolutely.
But people want to push back. Well, I don't need 25 landing pages. I've got a great page over here for my services, and I got a great page over there. Send all the traffic there. And we're like, no, no, right? All right, Joe, let's go ahead.
And on that same note, there's you don't really want to have a whole lot of options for them to click on, but every once in a while there's a need to have it. And that's
right.
Again, that's where the whole process of, it's not a set it and forget it environment. It's a put it up there, test it, see which page works better.
Right.
See, does it work better with one button, or does it work well to also send them to an information page? Because I've actually had that as an example within the last year, where the people were spending way more time on the website. Basically, the business had a one product kind of business service, and so they were really, it's a high ticket business service in the medical spa industry, and so they needed to find more opportunities to learn before they were willing to click and give their information. So on their landing page, I first tried it like the traditional landing page without very many options, but then I tested it with sending them to an information page where they could learn more about the product. And sure enough, their time on site did more than double. Their oh my gosh, all the KPIs just shot through the roof. Getting them to stay on the page, getting them to visit more pages on the website, and getting them to then put their information in and request the lead magnet that I had created for them. That all worked in line, simply because I gave them another opportunity to learn. So it just, every situation is a little different. You got to test them.
Right. What you're emphasizing, though, Joe, is that when you're dealing with specifically a high-ticket product or service,
right,
where the decision isn't a split decision, it isn't an emergency, it isn't something they have to do. Like, I like to categorize every client that we work with, I like to categorize their offer to the market as either an emergency or urgent or discretionary. And if we understand the difference between urgent and an emergency and or discretionary, that speaks to the point that you just made. A med spa, if you think about a med spa, we're talking probably average service value, average client value is north of $3,000. probably?
I would have said north of 2,000.
North of 2,000.
Yeah.
You know, I can think back to several industries we've worked in, the LASIK industry, cosmetic surgery industries. I mean, just along this idea of med spa stuff, some higher end chiropractic care, some of these different types of medical industries where it's not a mandatory thing that they have that type of service or that type of procedure, but it's more of a discretion. And we have to do a little bit more. You're speaking to this idea that, okay, we earn the click. And then that we do something that I call extending the life of the click, because what if they're not ready to buy today? And we don't want to dive into the buyer's journey. We'll have to do that on another call. But anyway, Joe, you've got one more thing that we want to give the audience today, and then we'll bring this call to a close. And I appreciate you taking time out. But so we talked a little earlier about this idea of not really understanding and taking full control of the sales funnel after the traffic's come to the website on the business owner side, the sales team side. The second thing is this idea of not properly optimizing landing pages and sending people through inefficient pages that don't match the intent of the search. Another big issue. I mean, we could literally sit here for 3-4 hours and do a whole day workshop on this, but what would be the last thing that you would want to add to the mix today?
Let's pause right here. My dog is irritating the heck out of me. The third thing that I come across pretty regularly is that, again, working with small businesses, working with local business owners, a lot of times they're very limited in the budget. They think they might have a big budget, but from the background that I'm coming with, working in-house for a big company with big pockets, the local business owner doesn't have deep pockets. And so one of the things that I find is that a lot of business owner or a lot of paid advertising accounts that I get a chance to audit, I find that they have a gazillion keywords in there. And one thing about having an account they try to make sure they find every single potential keyword, which was the way they taught us, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
10 years ago even, yeah.
Exactly. But the difference between today and then is that there's a lot more AI involved in the keywords, in the selection and serving of
artificial intelligence, meaning what? Let me just interrupt real quick so the audience doesn't get lost. We're talking about the fact that the data and the artificial intelligence now is doing so much of the work for us, right? I mean, go deeper into that with your comment though.
Well, right with that, Google is making search smarter all the time, and basically they're trying to answer your questions more as closely as they can, and that process has changed over the last 10 years. Right. It used to be Google would try to serve the words that you put in there, but now Google's using semantic search. They're acknowledging the English language, the nuances of plurals and synonyms and things of that nature, and they're serving ads differently. They're serving ads to match the semantic content that's being requested as opposed to the exact keywords that they might have been serving for years back. So from that standpoint, people, they had the habit of trying to put every single keyword somebody could put in there, which you can't do in the first place.
Right.
They would have too many keywords. But here's where it comes around. You turn around, like, personally, what I like to do is I don't usually start campaigns with giant keyword lists. My clients might ask me to, but I don't do that. What I do is I serve it with all the ones that I can see that are going to be in context to the application of, that I'm creating the ads for, but I let the searches that were out there kind of dictate what needs to be added to the campaigns. Yeah. And using the same tools within AdWords, I'm able to see, where the majority of the traffic is. Usually the majority of the traffic is coming in around 20%, is targeting 20% of the keywords in the list in the first place. Yeah. And
Joe, let me cut you off because you are bringing up, by the way, if you're watching this video and you've stuck to this time, this is the main reason. If you don't get anything out of this at this point, let me share with you what Joe is talking about right now. Inside of your AdWords account, there is a search query report. Joe is saying that I am not that smart. Joe's really smart. I'm pretty smart. But what we're saying to you is both of us, Joe, how'd you say it earlier? I'm human. I'm
very human.
I'm very human, which simply means we're human. We are not as good as these bots and the machines that Google has built. I'm going to turn this back over in a second, Joe. there's a search query report which literally tells you every keyword, every phrase that was searched that rendered your ad for someone to see it and click on it. Joe is using that data to make the campaign more efficient. He's using real people searches because we just can't be that smart. There's no keyword tool out there on the planet that knows exactly how every human being is going to search for that thing that you sell, right, Joe? Go ahead and take it back over. But I wanted to make sure that they know that if you haven't had a chance to look at your keyword query, your search query report, and your ads manager hasn't addressed that with you, then you're missing a huge opportunity. Joe's going to expand on it a little further here.
Well, going back to the keywords, you can't use one tool anymore. You got to basically use 4 or 5 tools when you're creating your keywords in the first place. But it still comes back to, no matter how well you try to design the campaign up front, you got to see what people are actually searching. You also got to see what actually is being served to your ads by the AI from Google. You got to see what they're actually serving to you. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important to turn around and look at your query reports to find out what are the keywords that are coming in, how much traffic is coming into those, how much of that traffic is that spend or that amount of cost that's being driven in is actually converting to money back. Is it, are you getting return on the ad spend or the investment there? Or is it just being that there's a lot of clicks on these keywords, but they're not doing anything for you? This is where I find, as an efficiency expert, this is one of the places where I live. I live and find in taking these reports and looking at the data, trying to figure out which ones are converting, keeping those terms, and getting rid of some of the other ones. And I can't tell you how many discussions I've had with bosses along the way, because I worked in-house, as well as with clients, and saying they have certain keywords in mind, but then I'm turning around and showing them, you're losing money on these keywords, or you're barely making any money.
They ain't making no money.
Exactly.
Right.
Look what the data doesn't lie. The data is showing you that these are the ones that are making you money. And once you show that data, once you spend all your, spend energy analyzing, and you can show these are where the money's coming from, then that's where, your value comes in. And that's how I got recognized for being an efficiency expert, because this is, for the audience, this is a little bit deep now, but I'm gonna go this direction. One of the biggest things for me to do is, once I've kind of analyzed what these keywords are and everything, is trying to figure out what times of day is the best time to run those ads.
Day parting.
Yep, day parting is a big part of it. Once you identify the keywords, because every competitor out there might not have have the big dollars, so they know that there's going to be the most traffic at 8 a.m. Well, that bid may have just gone up $2 to $3 per keyword, simply because it was 8 a.m. Whereas they pull out at 10 a.m. and you can make some, you can do a lot better by reducing your keyword $3 per click at 10 a.m. and still get the same rough conversion rate.
Yeah. You know what? I'm so glad you brought that up. And I just want to make a small distinction that what Joe is talking about in terms of the search query report, we are not talking about Google Analytics, right? Google Analytics is after the fact. We're not talking about how many clicks, visits, etc., time on the site. We're talking about what did people actually type in to Google. And you can't get all that data without Google Adwords, because in the Google search world, on the other side of the equation, you need a combination of tools to try to figure that out. But in this case, you get all the data. And Joe, really quick, as we get ready to move towards wrapping this up, it takes easily 60 to 90 days to really get enough data. Am I right? Everybody wants a 30-day ROI. You know what? How'd that work out when you ran that billboard? That's what I like to tell them. How'd that work out when you ran the billboard or the newspaper or the $1,000 magazine ad? How did all that work out back then? You didn't get a 30-day ROI. So it's funny, we get in digital and we somehow think that we're not willing to give the system time to work.
Right.
But as we bring it to a close, Joe, first of all, I love the fact that you brought up this idea of the sales funnel, because after the click comes through, especially if you're a professional service firm, if you're watching this in your e-commerce, we have a totally different approach. If you're watching this and we can see the path from impression or search to click to the cash register to the closing and the checkout of the product on an e-commerce business, some of this doesn't apply, although some of it in the middle does. But we're talking about this efficiency of professional service organizations who are not paying as much attention to after the lead comes through, sales processes, scripting, follow-up sequences, email. I mean, we could go on and on and on. In fact, there's a study, we know for sure that 71% of most leads that come in through big Fortune 500 companies. So imagine if this is the number in Fortune 5, what it's like in your small or medium-sized business. 71% of all internet leads don't even get followed up on within 72 hours, which is a crime. You're just giving money away, but don't let me go into a sales conversation. We'll come back on that another day. Joe, final thoughts as you wrap up. You also talked about home pages and having proper landing pages, and the last thing was the too many keywords being thrown into to the campaign. So the
all day and then that.
It's okay. It's okay. We're on the closing side, so I'll tee that back up again on the closing thoughts.
Okay. You know, one of the things that you hit on right there, it's on my list after the top 10 that I had on my list, and the next 5 was the client expecting immediate results. That was one that made my list. It is one of those things. You know, you mentioned the 60 to 90 days is definitely, depending on the size, the number of keywords that you're focused on and targeting. You know, I always, in my head, you know, I go into it with a thought of I should be able to see something turn around within 60 days. But the reality is it can be 90 days before we get a true hold of everything. And, you know, the longer amount of time you have to work with something, the more efficient you can make it. So
yeah. Sometimes it's to your point earlier, the data is what makes you more efficient. Without data, you know, there's only so much we can do as humans, right? There's only so much we can do as humans. And the machine called Google, and the machines, if we even were to go out to YouTube and all the other platforms, the search networks and the content networks and the Facebooks and the social media advertising, they're all machines. We have to feed the machine the data, and then we have to become efficient with the data it provides us back. Right. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you for this conversation today. So Joe, where can people find you after this recording to connect with you further? Thank you again for sharing all of your wisdom today.
Well, thanks for having me again, Daryl. And for those of you interested in learning more from my perspective, you can find out more at nvdigitalsolutions.com /interview. That's ENVY, nvdigitalsolutions.com /interview.
Well, everybody, we just want to thank you for taking time and honoring you for watching this video. It's our goal every time we bring these types of jam sessions, Yoka Local tips, whatever you want to call them. We just love delivering value because we have hundreds and hundreds of these conversations every single year where we find out business owners are doing what it seems to be tactically speaking, but they're not able to close the loop and get the ROI they're looking for. So I'm Daryl Evans, co-founder of Yoka Local Internet Marketing, and I will see you on another Yoka Local Tips Jam session. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.